Greetings and salutations, all my friends in the community. How are you doing? Welcome to Community Connections and Resources and Gardening. I am not Quandra Gaines. Did you notice this? I do not look like her. I am not her. I happen to be William Miles Honolulu Jr. I am the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. And I got stuff going on over here, so I'm trying to get that straight. So I'm the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. I'm sitting in for a little while for Quandra. She's going to be on in a minute. She has some things to take care of. And we're going to talk a little bit about the primary, the results. Oh, my God. The turnout was, I would say, a little messed up. That turnout was horrible. One of the things that I think, I'm hoping that we're going to dig into a little bit differently is that I took a step back and I looked at the unofficial vote totals for Wes Moore and Dan Cox. So these are the two gubernatorial candidates. And together, one of the future governors of Maryland, together, they got less than 300,000 votes. Less than 300,000 votes will determine has determined the trajectory of Maryland. 300,000 votes. And just to put it into context, there are 6 million people who live in Maryland, and I think it's 4.2 million that are eligible to vote. 300,000 out of 4.2 million. That means that less than 10% of the electorate was capable of determining the trajectory of the entire direction. Oh, hello, Kareem from Tanzania. Welcome. I appreciate when we have a guest from across the pond. So welcome to Black USA News. So like I was saying, so less than 300,000 people have solidified the options for us for governor. There is a lot that's wrong with that. Not just in the fact that voter turnout should be higher. I think part of it is this disillusionment on what the voting process is and how difficult they make it for us. Like getting out to vote takes a lot in many cases. You have to, I don't think every state has the law where you have to be given like X number of hours before you can get in. Oh, no problem, Kareem. Hey, you know what? Do us a favor and send us some information about your business, Kareem. And make sure you guys like and subscribe as well. We always want to know, what people are doing because we are very grateful for you all as viewers and listeners to our shows. So we want to make sure that we celebrate you and highlight you as best we can. So as we kind of navigate through these spaces, we end up in a situation where we have incredible candidates who get no love because the rest of us don't go out to vote. There are so many gaps. This is how minority control happens. This is how the people with the fewer, the unpopular plans and unpopular programs, this is how they maintain political power. Because there are so few of us who vote. Now, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, voting is everything and everybody has to vote. I believe that everybody should vote. But more than voting, you need to make sure that you stay active along the way. You need to make sure that as voting not just occurs and we vote, but that you volunteer afterwards. You volunteer during the campaigns. You spread the message and you educate yourself. Spend time looking up their policies and how their policies will engage and affect you. Like that's important. Anybody can tell you what they're gonna do one day, but if you just believe the promises, some of those promises end up being lies. And we've gotten so cynical in our political process that we're actually okay being lied to a little bit, or so long as it's not a big deal. What? I mean, it's sad because like places like Maryland, I really do love Maryland, and granted, I am more concerned about what's starting to happen now with the decisions that get made and the people who are in charge. Maryland has taken some progressive action. So, people get time off to go vote in Maryland. Not the full day, but your boss has to give you a certain number of hours to vote. That's a really wonderful tool because we need to encourage voting more. But when we look at what we do in America for voting versus what happens in the rest of the world, it kind of doesn't make sense. Why are elections on a Tuesday during the week? Why is that even a thing? See, it wasn't that big a deal. People talk about the constitutional and the laws and the history of the laws and how we have to honor history. But damn if it makes sense to honor history, because the world we live in is vastly different than the history. Because remember, back in the day, you didn't need to shut down schools, an entire school district, for people to vote in community centers because only landed white men had the opportunity to vote. Hell, you could do that in the church parking lot. Well, not a parking lot back then, but in the church barn where they kept the horses in stables. You didn't need to have this full integrated system to do it because there were fewer people available, and the fewer people could vote, and they had fewer candidates. So why are we going to keep trying to go back to what they did when we do acknowledge that a lot of their philosophies were wrong? I think that's also one of the problems with our current electoral system, is that we're still trying to not just honor the founding fathers. Notice that there were no mothers involved in this. Somehow they gave birth to a nation with just penises in a room. I thought there was a womb that was going to be necessary. The uteri needs to be available to make things birth. But somehow these white men, in their test tube they created and gave birth, the founding fathers gave birth to the nation. So funny how they can have founding fathers give birth to a nation, but somehow are confused about trans rights. Separate show. That's a separate show. So you have these white land-owning men who were the only ones able to vote. So why would you make the fall, November? There was no harvest. Remember, this was an agrarian society that they were developing in. There was no harvest for real in November. The landed gentry could go out and they could vote. It wasn't a big deal, but we're not landed gentry. And the laws that get made, the people who are elected, they literally shape the course of our lives. And as we are seeing in the January 6th committee, the critical importance of having individuals with integrity holding office. Because guess what? When they don't have integrity, they start planning coups because their power is more important. When they don't have integrity, they let a president who tried to exploit a foreign power in order to get dirt on his political rival, they let that go. When he foments a coup, a massive rally, and not foments a rally, but he planned an attack, like all these crazy people who were on his squad, they didn't even know each other like that. He brought the crazies together and gave them focus, gave them a mission. He did that, and it is his responsibility, but voting doesn't matter now, does it? Voting does matter, but voting is not a silver bullet. We're not dealing with these ethereal monsters where this cross or a silver bullet will be able to take care of them. That's not what we're dealing with. We are dealing with human beings, flesh and blood, who need to be held accountable for their behavior. But before they get to even be able to be in positions where they can engage in poor behavior, we need to do a better job of screening. We need to focus in on not just voting for people that we like and putting them in office, but voting for people that we can trust. Voting for people that have demonstrated integrity. I don't understand some of the ways that people show up. How I find it incredibly bitch made how you have people who are privately wringing their hands and talking about how they don't want to be aligned with the MAGA base, but in public they either say nothing or they pretend to, or they are supportive. You cannot have it both ways. This is one of the central policies or central problems with candidacy or with politics. What we also find is that the candidates that tend to tell us the truth are the ones that we don't want to listen to. Big shout out to Richard Deshay Elliott. Richard is an incredible analyst. He was a candidate for office, I think, in the 24th district. He also is a frequent guest on many of the shows on Black USA News. Richard did not win his race, but guess what? Richard made a statement. Richard has been out there grinding and getting people to know him and letting them know that he is what he says he is. The result of that is that people now understand and know who he is because we have engaged him, because he has stepped up to the table and has demonstrated integrity. Now, the reality is that I know people who are like, yeah, I don't really get a good vibe from him. Like, he doesn't seem like somebody I would, like a guy that they would be friends with. And again, I understand, especially the person who said this. But what they did acknowledge, though, is that, but he is the truth. Like, I do believe if he says he's going to do it, he's going to put it in. This is the kind of cat who gives out his personal cell phone number everywhere he goes. Literally everywhere I've ever seen him, I've seen this brother put out his personal cell phone. Not the burner, because I got a Google number. I got a couple Google numbers. I got a burner phone. I got some other stuff going on because I live a complicated life that ain't none of your business. Remember, I told y'all I might not keep it 100, but I'll keep it 85. I'll tell you how that stuff happened, but I ain't gonna tell you why. See, that's how I balance. Everything is about coming to balance. What's up, Rico? What's up, Michael, too? Like, everybody's coming through this morning. How y'all doing? But getting back to just kind of closing the chapter on Richard, is that consistently, no matter what else people say about his position on policies, they say that he is who he shows himself to be. We need more elected officials like that. We need more elected officials who are going to stand in the gap when it comes time for the rough stuff, because our politics are no longer just political. Literally, not just the January 6th thing, but think about what's happened in Michigan. Think about how they took guns. Alabama had a grenade launcher at Subway. Like, I swear to you all, I will never forget this image of this white supremacist looking dude standing at Subway with a rocket launcher to his back, ordering a $5 footlong. They took literal weapons of war to complain about mask mandates. Think about the type of people that you are dealing with when their solutions to violence, their solutions to wearing a mask to keep other people safe, is to break out AR-15s and go to the Capitol. And since we're on that topic, y'all ever notice how when they show up with AR-15s, police have demonstrated an incredible level of restraint. The police stand up to them, chest bowed, and having them yelling and spitting in their faces. They just stand there looking hard. And it's like, wow, you just gonna let them do that while they're carrying weapons of mass destruction. Now, I think being able to kill 4 people in one spray of your trigger, that's too massive for me. But when they show up and they start these riots and they start these aggressive actions and they start these insurrections and coups, all of a sudden law enforcement has restraint. They understand. They have empathy. They understand how to de-escalate. How is it that there was only one gun discharged and one person killed during all of January 6th? And I have seen incredible clips of, in January 6th, I saw police getting beaten. Throughout Black Lives Matter, I didn't see that, but I did see Black people and advocates. I saw an old man get knocked to the ground and his ears were bleeding, and they were so callous that as one of the young officers reached down to get him, another senior officer pulled him up and said, no, let the EMTs handle that. This is how they show up when we protest, when our allies protest. But when you bring weapons of war, when you stand out and you tell interlopers to get out of your community, that's okay. I'm sorry, that's not okay. When Black people say you all need to get out of our community because you are damaging it, that's not okay. But when we walk through a neighborhood, 2 lawyers can come out with a handgun and an assault rifle Get off of my property. And that's okay. Not only is it okay, they become darlings of the Republican establishment. Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines to come to another city to protect businesses from Black Lives Matter. Not that any of these businesses were being threatened, but they created this narrative in their heads. And he came to another state with a weapon of war. He discharged it, killing 3 people. He is a fucking rock star. Lil Nas X gets death threats, and Kyle Rittenhouse becomes the centerpiece of the Republican National Convention. There are talks about using his fame to propel him to heights of political leadership in the Republican Party. Please understand what this means. Before he murdered 3 people, no one had heard of Kyle Rittenhouse. So what this means is that the fastest way to stardom in the GOP is to murder people that they don't like. That's all he's known for. Doesn't have any other job to speak of. No writings, no philosophy, no scholarship. He murdered some people who were protesting getting murdered. Like, the irony is always lost on this group. We never know what they're going to do next. We don't. Because they don't. They run through instinct. Well, some of them don't. I don't want to make this seem like there is no organized plan in the background, because they are amazing. If you, again, looking at January 6th, they're amazing at seeming like things just kind of happen. Oh, this just happened. It's like, no, it didn't just happen. You all did this. Oh, before I forget, Quandra reminded me to let you all know this. The Speak Life Tour, that is today. DJ Rube Rice is going to be there. This is an opportunity for us to really get back out in the world, to get back out and to join people. It is going to be at Baltimore City College's parking lot on 3220 the Alameda, up by the Alameda and 33rd Street. So make sure you come through. It's going to be a really good opportunity for us to celebrate peace. You see the organizations that are around it. You have Ceasefire, PNC Bank, Coldstream, Homestead, Montebello, Speak Life. Like, this is an opportunity for us to come out and celebrate not just who we are as a people of Baltimore, but also the great work, the same thing we're talking about now. We have an opportunity to celebrate and to find community resources, to find community partners, and just celebrate the life and to celebrate the peace that we have. I think, it starts at noon while I'm sitting here. Like, where time does it start? I knew it started in the afternoon. I couldn't remember if it was 11 or noon, because I think if you're setting up, you need to be there at 11. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not talking to the setup people. I'm talking to the people trying to go. Make sure you're there by noon. It is going to be a good time. Live music, great performances, and if y'all know how things go, there's gonna be some good food around there somewhere. I don't even know who's gonna be cooking food, what caterer they got, but I just know. I'm sorry, I've been in Baltimore long enough to know that that's how it happens. You have a good event, there's gonna be some good food around there too. So I am excited about that opportunity, and just another opportunity to celebrate our community. I mean, I've got to give it to Baltimore, the resilience that we've demonstrated in the face of a lot of commentary, a lot of, actually, and a lot of our secrets or a lot of our stories being told in a narrative that's not ours. I was at the NAACP conference last week, and it was so wonderful not to have anybody ask me, is living in Baltimore like being on a wire? That when I was with other organizations and I would go to present or to talk to people nationally, that was always one of the questions. Is it like being on the wire? Have you ever been shot at? Da, 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 da. And it's like, well, it's not like the wire, and getting shot at, that didn't happen in Baltimore. That happened someplace else. But like, why is that the focal point? Because that's all they knew. That's all they know in many cases about what we do here. But I am grateful for people like Erica Bridgeford, people like Quandra Gaines, people who are out in the community trying to make sure that there are resources for those who have been disinvested. Because a lot of the challenges that the communities that we have face aren't really issues of the community. They're issues of policy and power. When individuals have come to the table and told you that, oh yeah, no, you can't. We won't give you enough. You're going to have to make it do. We start believing that making it do or making it happen, or what they say, getting it out of the mud, really getting it on the ground level is the way that it should. And we take honor. Hell, in many cases, we don't even appreciate things that are done that you didn't have to work for, that didn't have to go hard, to handcrafted, the come up through the ranks, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But all of those, in my estimation, are tools that are used to keep us disenfranchised. It is the ultimate version of gaslighting. I do not give you enough. I create a circumstance that negatively impacts your life. Then I give you resources that I know are not going to be sufficient to address the situation I caused. And then I don't give you enough time to resolve it. And as you start pulling resources of your own together, I come and either tax them or destroy them, or annex them or legislate them. And then I blame you for the incredibly poor outcomes for your community generation after generation. You say things like, I give you more, like they say in Baltimore City Schools, I give you more money in Baltimore City Schools than you do in any other jurisdiction on a per pupil basis. Okay. But you also have poorer police presence than any other community. You have poor social emotional support than any other community, any other jurisdiction. So you allow drugs into our city, and then when you tell us how you want to do it, it only comes to punishing those you have already endangered, or those of you already disenfranchised. But when the demographic of the epidemic changes, when the heroin epidemic, because before it was a war on drugs before, but now it's a drug epidemic. And as the darkness of that epidemic the darkness of the war on drugs starts to lighten up, so that it's no longer black and brown junkies, but they're white addicts in need of services. Now, all of a sudden, there's this level, this compassionate vocabulary around the mental and behavioral health needs of individuals who are dealing with drug addiction. And how they are the victims of the situation, of this circumstance, as opposed to the junkies that needed to be locked up. Because when it was me and my folk, we were the junkies that needed to be locked up. And we've reached the point where it's not even coded anymore. There's no pretense that this is fair. There's no pretense that this is what needs to happen. They don't even lie about it anymore. It is so... The respect has gone so far, or the lack of respect has gone so far, that they say the parts that used to need to stay quiet out loud. They literally lie to us, so long as it's the lies that they like, so long as they can make a certain population of the world, or certain population, believe that their financial security will be okay. So long as they can do that, that's fine. They're more than happy to run with that. But at the point that their financial stability not as destroyed, but just disturbed, where you're not getting 100% of the money, we are like, hey, maybe you could just take 85 and let us live off the other 15. No, you're taking my blah blah blah. Rules, support privilege. I gotta be honest, I would love me some white privilege. Sometimes I walk around and I imagine that I could just go into a place and just be there, that I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking of me. I don't have to worry about, are they thinking that I'm going to steal, or are they worried that I don't have enough money to pay? Because I know those things happen. One of the biggest challenges is that we tend not to know when, right, Quandra? We tend not to know when they are happening. For those of you all who come from a point of privilege, let me explain to you how this works. One of the biggest challenges about being a person of color in a circumstance that does not always welcome is that you're never quite sure when it's going to pop up. There's a difference if, when you go to a place, it's always going to be hostile. If you know that, you can actually get your mind wrapped around that. But sometimes the bigger challenge is that you go to some place and it doesn't seem like it's going to be hostile. Seems like everything's going to be great. And then something happens. Then somebody gets mad, or if somebody doesn't agree with something you said, well, I understand why somebody like you would say that. What? Oh, I'm not saying anything. I'm just like, you come from a different perspective. So the logical argument that I may have just provided with my facts and citations and things like that are dismissed because of the color of my skin. Now, not suggesting that other people don't have a similar experience. I know women have that experience all the time. But one of the challenges is that if you are not aware of the experiences of others, you become as bad as those who do it deliberately, in my opinion. I'll use an example. Most of my friends are female, aside from my frat brothers and family. Most of my friends are women, and they have been incredibly supportive of me understanding and trying to learn more about women. So I think, I got it. I'm one of those. I'm one of those good ally folk. And what I did, and you all probably saw this a few months ago, in March, we had the month of Black women. And so I was like, this is an opportunity to provide a platform to highlight Black women. As an ally, I'm going to do my part, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't so much that it was a great show or things like that. For me, the biggest part was what I learned from women that I knew. I didn't even understand how complicated the spaces that they navigate through were. It was amazing the first question for everyone was, what is it like to be a Black woman? Like, you have aliens who come to the planet and they have no frame of reference for humanity. They see you. They're like, oh, you look like one of these Black women I've heard about. So what does that look like? The variety in the answers was amazing. But what was more amazing were the similarities in the answers. There was this curve that went through them all. There was this idea of having to be the best and being treated as the worst on a regular basis. And a lot of times I realized that a lot of times I wasn't seeing that because I saw the best in them. But I was only coming to it from my perspective, because it doesn't matter how many people are in a room supportive of you. There is something about being human where that one comment may fuck up everything else. So for in the example I used, and people are like, well, you shouldn't really care about that's just one person out of a group, blah, blah, blah. So watch this. And to those people, anybody that has that argument, I challenge you with this experiment. I challenge you to get a fresh, unopened, straight out the factory bottle of water, pour it into a very clean, very sterilized glass, put a drop of urine in it, and then drink it. Now, for some of you all, you might be like, okay, no, not you. You, that's not for you. But for those of you all who really get the metaphor, it's like, that's still just one drop. The whole 99.999, a minuscule amount of that is urine. Is something, or dirt, whatever it is, but put that in there and still be comfortable drinking it. That is what it's like to tell somebody who is being oppressed that they need to get over and not be concerned about it. Because the reality is that one drop of urine in this cup of pure water will probably have no impact on you physically. Probably is so diluted that it would, even if there was problems with it, wouldn't be an issue, but the mental impact of it. Walk around the rest of the day going like, because it does matter. When people talk about their cars and the problems they have, they don't talk about like, I remember the time I went outside, put my key in, turned the ignition, and drove off. Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. But they can tell you every time the car hesitated, or that it didn't start, or it cut off. They can remember those because those are the negative parts that shape your perspective. Why would you prepare for the great? That's just normal. But we have these people who are out here, and as people who are oppressing everyone, and many of them, they don't believe themselves to be racist. That's why I try to stay away from the word stay when I'm talking about, particularly on policy issues, staying away from the concept of racism and spending more time on white supremacy. Because the way that racism has been defined and kind of developed throughout, especially in the American consciousness, racism has to do with your emotions. So if I can legitimately say I don't hate you, then by definition I can't be racist, because race is hate. I don't hate. But we need to shift the conversation to make sure that people understand that racism is what started it, but racism gave birth to white supremacy. Racism gave birth to white supremacy. And white supremacy is kind of like, the child of. The child of. So it's like, old man, blase, blah. He was a tough one, but this kid is okay. He's not as bad. Well, he learned the same philosophies. Like, the people are concerned about whoever the next commander in coup chief is going to be, because they will have learned from the mistakes that Donald Trump made, and the coup actually might be successful next time. If we don't hold people accountable, and not just through our vote. I'm gonna tell you why. Because our votes do make a difference. Joe Biden got more votes than any candidate in presidential history. No one in the history of the United States has gotten more votes than Joe Biden. Do you know who came in second? Got the second most votes in presidential candidate history? Donald Trump, in that same election. Please understand that there were people up to November 30th, and even beyond that, but November 30th, more people in America wanted Donald Trump to keep going. We got lucky, because if those numbers had slid into one state instead of another, the Electoral College could have delivered Donald Trump another win. But the voting was not for Joe Biden in many cases. It was a repudiation of Donald Trump. But that's where we are now. We somehow believe that we have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Right now, those are the candidates that we have. There's some people who don't believe in Wes Moore or Dan Cox in Maryland. I'll go back to Maryland. But 300,000 people have decided that those are going to be the gubernatorial candidates for us to choose from in November. That's it. That's absolutely it. That's what they did. 300,000 people, less than 10% of Maryland voters, have been able to decide who will be our next governor. And they said, well, you still have the election in November. Yeah, but I can't vote for Rashawn Baker or Peter Franchot or Kathy Schultz. Then, nope. I am stuck with this because less than 10% of the population wanted it, of the eligible voting population wanted it. We need to make sure that as we are working, if your candidate did not win, you need to make sure that you're on the next candidate's campaign. We complain often because the politicians don't come out. They don't only come out when they're ready, when it's election time. That's when they're out and about. That's when they're shaking hands and whatever. Why don't they come out earlier? Then, hell, why didn't you find out who they were? This is your country. This is your city. This is yours, your home. These people will make laws to determine when you can get kicked out of your house, who can arrest you, how much money you have, who can take advantage of you, what type of supports are going to be available. So just throwing in your vote and then walking away, hoping it works out, no thank you. We need to be more actively engaged. We need to hold, and I hate the phrase, holding people's feet to the fire, because I found out where that came from. In ancient China, one of the emperors was concerned about corruption, and he said, you can't have a conviction, because he found out some people were being lied upon and being convicted unfairly. He was like, we can't have that. So the only time we can get a criminal conviction is if you confess. So the judges, not, their judicial system back in ancient China was a little bit different. So the judges were like, well, I know he did it, but he won't confess. You know what? Let's hold his feet to the fire to hold them accountable to what I know that he did. So the whole concept of holding feet to the fire is a method of torturing people in order to get them to confess to something they may or may not have done. It eliminates the truth. That's what we need to anchor in right here. It is the truth, the shared reality that will help us move forward as a nation and as a people. The stories in our head about how things work, those are the ones that tend to have us at each other's throats. Like I was telling you all, I went to the NAACP convention this week. There are a lot of people who their only reference point for the NAACP is the work that the organization has done throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where the need was to the very public agitation in order to garner support to get policies changed. Well, see, the world has changed since then. And the outside advocacy, the rallies and things like that, those don't necessarily work anymore. Those get people's attention, but it doesn't get policy, because what we end up seeing, like during Black Lives Matter, some of the more problematic police chiefs and elected officials, they came out and kneeled in solidarity, and they came out and did all of these performative things. It may have been, I can't tell you whether they felt it or not, but it was very performative. Now we are on the other side. Doesn't mean that any policies have changed. So what the NAACP has spent its time doing is, instead of being very visible in the streets, we are very powerful in the suites. Now, the urban streets are where the rubber meets the road and where our the outcomes from many of our activities show up. But in the corporate suites is where we make that happen. And the corporate suites is where we're in the background shaking people down to make sure that they are putting money in our communities. We're in the background helping labor unions negotiating contracts and let them know that, hey, you all don't negotiate fairly with the union, like our convention in Atlantic City. Up until about 2-3 weeks ago, we weren't even sure if we were going to have it in Atlantic City. Why? It's because we stand by workers, and the casinos were pulling in money during COVID and wasn't paying nobody a damn thing. So we, as a national organization, didn't know whether we would spend our dollars there, because we stand with workers, we stand with the oppressed, we stand with the disenfranchised. And while they may not look sexy anymore, reading policy and writing speeches and doing talking points and doing analysis, looking at data, putting spreadsheets together, doing PowerPoint presentations, that ain't some sexy shit. That is not as powerful an image as standing outside and fighting and staring down police, but it gets more money in the community. It ensures that there are laws in the community that move us forward, that help us, help the communities that we serve. We know that exists, but we need to make sure that we are there supporting those people as well. Those that are standing in the gap, those that are being oppressed, and to support them. And again, goes back to the voting. It's not just enough to vote and then say I did my part. Just like it's not enough to, if you are against homelessness and things like that, or drug abuse, just handing somebody some change or handing them some money on the street, that is a wonderful thing. But if that is the extent of your contribution, I have to say, I don't think you contributed that much. That does help, but there is so much more that can be done. And I try not to judge people for their contributions based on the resources that I believe that they have available. Because I know you don't know how much or what I have. So you cannot determine whether my contributions are, you can only determine whether they're what you want or not. You can't really determine if they are the best that I could do, because you don't know what the hell I could do. That is not the nature of things. But yeah, see what else? Resources. Big up, because we spend a lot of time on my show and in my world talking about business and stuff like that. So big up to the Baltimore City Small Business Resources Center and the small business development centers throughout Maryland. If you are working on your business, If you are doing those types of things, please stop by one of those organizations because they do great work. The Small Business Development Center. There are small business development centers all throughout Maryland. I think their anchor point is out of College Park. But also make sure that you go to the center because they do good work as well. Paul Taylor's people over there, Sean Stinnett. Sean is an amazing guy who does great work, not just with the mayor's office, but also with the community. You know what I did? I'm gonna take a moment of personal privilege because I'm gonna go ahead and tell you all a little. So we talk about resources, right? Let me tell you about a resource I can bring to the table. Here you go. Let me tell you about my company. Hi, my name is William Honablu Jr., and I'm the host of the Black USA News Morning Show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive. And we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop on grant writing right here. All right, I just want to tell y'all how it goes. The grant writing workshop was it last? No, that was last month. The grant writing workshop, but every week we have workshops about like how do you work on your money, like how do you even determine the prices? Because we have a lot of people who don't know how to choose their own prices. Like, how do I determine how much I should make? Well, the reality is, I'm gonna tell you, spoiler alert, it's all guessing. Somebody may give you a price and tell you how they figured it out, but they did that on their own. They did it. It was absolutely up to them. They came up with that number, whatever. They could have, in as much as they could have just pulled it out their ass, or they could have had this massive calculation. It is still a decision and a guess by them. So, yeah, we want to help you with that. So if you're not able to catch up with any of the other workshops, just visit www.grindinggang.com. Tell you a lot of what we're doing and how you can get involved and get invested. Oh, hey, there you go. How you doing? Oh, you muted, yo.
I am here. Good morning.
Oh, there you go. There you go. How you doing?
I just I've had pneumonia for the last week.
Wow. So okay. So how did that happen? Like,
I have no idea.
Pneumonia, or was this just like...
I was really particular about the events that I went to, and I just felt very under weather. They said I was exhausted and I was dehydrated and I was overworked. So I'm grateful that I have a job, that I could take sick days and have PTO and all that good stuff. So yeah. So thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. And then today I had Microsoft updates. That just
those computer updates will get you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let's talk. Do you mind if we talk a little bit? Because I had pneumonia before, but I realized that I never really looked up what it was. Like when I had pneumonia, this was like 2013, 14, and I was in bad shape. Like I was in such bad. I didn't realize how bad it was. My son was in an event with some of my frat brothers, like with the Botillion, we call it. Big up to Alpha Phi Alpha Delta Lambda chapter, Baltimore City. But he was in there, and he went and told my frat brothers, the brothers there, he was like, "My dad is not feeling well. Could you all make him go to the hospital?" And when I got to the hospital, they were like, "Oh no, you have pneumonia, sir. You need to stay here." Like, and what it did is it left. So I didn't know what it was. Just thought it was when people I thought it was like a really bad flu. Didn't realize that I apparently had like sacks of pus in my lungs or some shit. Hey, man. So how did you you were tired, but let's be honest.
So I have a really great relationship with my doctor. I love him and her. I love them both. But I've had it before. I had it 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know what it was. So a lot of times what we don't realize is that pneumonia can seep in. It's like, I'm one of those type of people that like to be around positivity. I like to be around people who are constantly thinking and growing and all. And when you're plagued with a lot of negativity and all, it can actually break down your immune system, because you're not taking care of yourself. And then I ventured out into PhD land, which took more because see, I'm working a full-time job and then that and then other things and really not really and putting some self-care in there, but not as much. And when I had to do a tally of my sleep log with my doctor, yes, he makes me do a sleep log. I was really living off of 16 hours worth of sleep, 16 hours of work time. Well, 16 hours that I wasn't working or studying or doing something else, which in a whole week is insane. So
that's like 2 hours and some change of personal time per day over the course of a week.
Yeah. So I just felt really, I knew something was going on last Sunday when I was tired. And I said, well, I'll sleep and, drink plenty of liquids and all that good stuff. And all of a sudden, it just shook me down. But Monday I pushed forward because I talked to you. I pushed forward. I put in my papers and I said, I'm going to go to sleep early. I didn't go to sleep until 3:00. I usually get up at 5. And next thing you know, I just felt like this whole weight of my everything come on me. I couldn't move. My body shut down. And if you were like my children would say, Mom, your body has to tell you to stop. So my body shut down, couldn't move, couldn't think. I just knew that I had to stay in bed. When I talked to my doctor, he said, I told you. But he had warned me in March, of course, but I don't listen. But, now, it's a lot of fluid, but it's a lot of cleansing. So in a sense, he said, this is your purge. This is your time of purging. You get to get rid of things now so that when you finish all of this, your pneumonia season, I've had it for, I don't know what, since Saturday, Monday. But it's a lot of aches and pains. It's a lot of uncomfortable. I'm not used to staying in my bed for long periods of time, but I've enjoyed it. I have only eaten two meals out of the whole week because you can't hold anything down. Right. But it's other than that, that's why it's important for self-care. That's why it's important for you to listen to your body. I'm 54. I'm not used to being shut down. But I now know that there's going to be a lot of wellness people on here. I'm going to be incorporating a lot of different things in my own personal life because I don't want that thing to happen to me again.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you mentioned was this whole concept of kind of this radical idea of self-care. A lot of times because we don't even know what agency is, what it feels like to care for ourselves. We believe that self-care, it's not self-care until, you go to the spa or until it feels good. One of the biggest types of self-care that I've been able to identify is the sacredness of boundaries. The fact, and not just boundaries with other people, because that's a lot of times what we look at, but boundaries with yourself. The shit that you say that I'm not going to do that, not even related to somebody else, but like I've decided that that's not for me and I'm not going to do it. Being able to maintain a boundary like that puts you in a better position to marshal and navigate your own life without having to be beholden to too many other people. But until you are able or in a position to declare that this is my boundary, even for myself, then how will anybody else respect your boundaries? If you don't even respect your own damn boundaries, how anybody else going to respect them? Because, it's like, and I've been in situations like, I remember there's a young lady I was dating and she had significantly negative impacts in relationships. And so she would always,
wow.
And I didn't realize how bad it was, but she would always pre-apologize for stuff. Like, so she snored. And so before, I came over, she was like, I need to let you know I snore. I wear CPAP. I hope that doesn't bother you. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I want you to breathe. Like, please breathe. Like, that's not a big issue. And she would apologize for things and like, well, I know you might not like this. And I was like, how am I going to like you when you clearly don't like you?
Yes. And the one thing I I'm grateful that I have a support system here, especially with you and Donnie and Mike, and many others. I mean, Taz. It's been, and I was listening to you. I was actually commenting on my phone because I was dealing with, the young gentleman you were talking about, the Shields. That's a powerful.
Oh yeah, Richard.
That is a powerful man. Oh my goodness! And he's what, 24, 26? Yep. Amazing, amazing.
And the thing that his integrity is amazing. Like I don't doubt. Like, even if you don't like what he does, you don't doubt that is who he is, period.
Yes, but I make my presence. I try my best to make my presence on every show for Black USA News. Mm-hmm. And I learn a lot. Like the Cannabis Council person and PG.
Oh yeah, Martin.
That's my zone. That's my zone. But I like his bluntness. And I was actually looking at yesterday in between I was listening to Collective that's coming out for the Black Fest.
Jamie
yes, was it the Black Fest with the vegan and the Land of Kush and all these different things.
Oh my God, Land of Kush.
Oh, so and then that so I think wellness. I think we kind of make it into a fad. Wellness is not a fad. Wellness is a lifestyle. And that's something that you have to intentionally put into, you have to put work into this. Like, I don't eat a lot of meat. I do love an occasional hamburger. I'm not going to say I haven't given it up totally. And I do like an occasional steak.
Okay.
However, I'm much more intentional what's going on because I saw a documentary where they're cloning our meat.
Yeah.
And they're putting dye on our potatoes and things of that nature. So I'm definitely going to be doing, I know that gardening's in the title, and I've kind of been delinquent to a point, but I am going to have my son, I have to do some weeding and because I am doing sweet potatoes. So you'll actually get to see sweet potatoes and habanero peppers. I've got basil, sage. I have yellow and red peppers. I have eggplants, but I have the longer ones, not the real thick ones. And I have a lot of different things in my garden. So I haven't really had, for the last week, I haven't done anything. So the rain has just been my mixed chard. All these different things are actually happening in my garden. So today I'm going to take it slow. I'm going to support Catherine Trotter, who is an amazing woman, and she's the organizers for Speak the Life Baltimore. So I'm going to be out there filming for at 12 noon at 3220 the Alameda. I hope people will. That is a very positive event. If I can come out of my bed after having pneumonia to support some really fantastic, wonderful people who are about community, who are about doing the grunt work, the work that people don't want to do, the work that's necessary. And as a person who has been on the grassroots level, who has worked in the grassroots level, for me, you got to learn who you got to really learn who you are, but you also got to had the opportunity to learn who you were working with was. You know what I mean? So you got to learn how to do different things you thought you couldn't do, you learned how to do. So I really invite everyone to come out. It's at 12 noon. It's got a series of DJs, but it's going to be a great, positive, refreshing time. I think that with the pandemic and the results of the voting, it's needed. It's needed. You're going to meet real people in real time, enjoy yourself, have some great food, listen to some great music, listen to some great kids in the community doing different things. So it's a lot of different things that's going to be going on. And Catherine Trotter will probably she's going to be on the show. Unfortunately, one time I had technical difficulties and she had to go somewhere else. So me and Will had to do that show. But I really want people to really understand, what do we do next?
Yes.
This week, I actually got out of my bed to go vote. And I mean, a woman told me, she said, "You look real. Are you okay?" And I was like, "No." But I'm voting.
No,
but I'm voting. It's important that I vote because I'm looking at the what they call declared winners. In some cases, I'm very pleased. In some cases, I'm very concerned.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. There's some fuckery and foolishness and some shenaniganizing happening right here. And we're going to talk about
especially in Baltimore City. Especially in Baltimore City. I mean,
well, no, statewide. One of the challenges, and I'm actually looking, and you know, I try to keep it not 100, but 85.
No, I want to keep it 100. I am terrified. I'm not going to say I'm terrified, but I've actually, so when I told you that I look at people, I meet people where they are. So I've gotten to meet the current state's attorney, and she's remarkable. She's done different activities for youth and things of that nature. The question I have is this: if she's not going to be in office again, are they going to continue with the different programs that she implemented?
Most of them, no. Because that is one of the first rules of politics, that especially in a contentious race, that you wipe the fingerprints of your predecessor, because you don't want to be held to account to their record.
Okay, so then
let me be clear, and I just want to make, because I don't want nobody to come saying shit to me. I have not talked to Ivan Bates about this. I am talking about the way that politics normally runs.
True, and then I have a problem. I'm gonna be 100.
Wait, I'm sorry. You also realize you about to start a whole new fucking show in the last 3 minutes.
I know, but so what do we do next? So what do we do next? I mean, because I talked to a lot of young people when I was standing in line, which was good for me because I was like, yes, we're standing in line. And I've seen a lot of young people, but then I saw a couple people that were kind of staggering. And I said, well, are you going to vote? They were like, I don't vote. And I said, well, why are you here? He said, I'm waiting for my friend who votes. I said, well, why don't you just get in the line? I said, because I'm not feeling good. I may need to lean on y'all a little bit. And he did vote. But he said he didn't think his vote was valuable. And that's concerning to me.
Well, that's because, real talk, in the political machine that we have, his vote is not valuable. And that's why I advocate not just voting, because voting is one thing and you really should do it. But volunteering, becoming educated, testifying on bills, making sure you stay in people's ears, it's hard work. But if all you do is vote and that's it, like it's kind of like, oh, you know what? For me, what it feels like. It's like, oh, you know what? I had sex with her, got her pregnant. Now we got a baby, and I don't understand why she ain't raising it right. I put the seed in. You know what I mean? I did my part. Why aren't you? Yeah, but if you're not a present parent, if you are not actively engaged, then you leave the raising of your child to that other parent. And unfortunately, the other parent hangs with Donald Trump.
True. So the thing is, what I would challenge everyone that's listening and that will be looking at this, I challenge you to challenge yourself of being an active participant in your community. Because if you're not aware, because what I'm noticing now is that certain blocks of the city that vote, like heavily, like the heavy polls,
they get listened to.
You know, they were, I mean, because I actually got to see the former mayor, Jack Young. I got to see quite a few people at my polling station, and come to find out it wasn't really my polling station. Well, yeah, it's my polling station, but they put me down. The Board of Election put me down for the wrong site, even though my site was there. Mm-hmm. That's another conversation, which I think that person should be removed totally. But it was kind of interesting to look at this week where I saw all these people, and it was something where it was the election show, and Martha Jews was saying that there was a thing where, as far as the zip drives disappearing and then reappearing.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the big challenges as I was talking earlier about having integrity in the election or as in candidates, we need to make sure that we are electing people with integrity, because those types of stories are ones that, hell, there's no different than the shit that happened in Georgia with Trump. And so we need to make sure that we are anchored. Again, anchoring it into a shared reality where this is what actually happened. Anything that we can't prove happened, we can't really deal with it yet. If you believe it happened, you keep going out and getting proof, but don't fuck with me until you bring me proof, because I got other things to really do.
Now, I am not a Trump supporter, but I was looking at on Discovery Plus, Unprecedented. It is a must see. It branding of self, branding of your company, branding is huge. Name recognition is huge. And that's something that Will and I will do a show on, because I know
Taz is like the psychographics of marketing. Yes, I think that's that we can spend some time on that one.
Yeah. So thank you, Will, for always being there for me. But I really hope this everyone will support Speak Life Baltimore. Just listen to the words Speak Life, because all of this time we've been speaking death. We're always talking about not supporting the community, but disservicing the community. So now come out, enjoy, and let's refresh our minds and our bodies, and nourish ourselves and get rid of it. All right, well, it's Quadra. I'm sorry I came in late, but thank you, Will, as always. Have a wonderful, safe, and productive week.
Bye. That sounds like a great one. Bye.